Greetings and salutations, YouTube. This is Fragments of Memory, your friendly neighborhood armchair philosopher. Ryan Holiday of the Daily Stoic wrote an article titled, "You'll Never Get Your Pound of Flesh." In it, he discussed the folly of revenge. He even cited a quote attributed to Marcus Aurelius saying, "The best revenge is not to be like that." I began to reflect on this when I started thinking back to my own childhood and adolescence, in which I was mocked and picked on. People made fun of how I talked, dressed, and carried myself. This was usually done by my black peers. To this day, I have a love-hate issues with other black ADOS folks. My own black people called me an Oreo, black on the outside but white on the inside. I was called a faggot by both the guys and girls. To this day, I have issues with other black people. It's almost a knee-jerk reaction. And in some ways, I have longed to get my pound of flesh. Now, that term pound of flesh comes from the Shakespeare play, The Merchant of Venice. Now, there's a character known as Antonio and another character known as Shylock. Now, Antonio goes to Shylock to borrow some money. And Shylock gives him the money and he says, "Pay me back. But if you don't pay me back, the penalty for not paying me back is I get to cut off a pound of your flesh." And I just remember that phrase, a pound of flesh. So that term pound of flesh is more, because the debt is so great and the cost is so high, I'm unable to pay it, that I'm literally having to cut off a piece of my flesh in order to satisfy the debt. Now, if you know the plot of Merchant of Venice, there's a really clever way that they got around the whole pound of flesh thing. But for the purposes of this discussion, I just wanted to talk about how when we feel someone's wronged us, we feel like they're now in debt to us, that they owe us because they lied about us, they made fun of us, they may have actually physically assaulted us, they may have ruined us financially, they may have caused us to lose a job. And there's a little bit in each of us that wants to pursue revenge. We want our get back. We want to get our lick back because, someone struck us, someone hurt us. We want them to hurt. We want them to bleed. We want them to suffer. I'm guilty of this just as many of you that may tune into this video are. One of the things I notice even in the world's major religions, especially when it comes to the Abrahamic faith, such as Christianity. Now, growing up in church, we were taught the Lord's Prayer. It's in the book of Matthew. You know what it is. Our Father that art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And then there's a line in it that says, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Some have even made the translation of, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And even after that prayer, Jesus is known to say to his followers, remember, folks, that if you don't forgive your brother, your heavenly Father will not forgive you. But if you forgive your heavenly Father, forgive your earthly brother, your heavenly Father will forgive you. So I think about that, like, why do I want my get back, my lick back, my pound of flesh, as it were? And throughout the Bible, you get this. There's a passage where Jesus even says to his disciples, if you have a grievance against your brother, before you offer your gift at the altar, you better go settle the grievance with your brother so you can then offer your gift at the altar to God. We get to the Islamic religion, which is another Abrahamic faith, where Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he relates a hadith about how there's going to be a man. He's going to come to God on the day of judgment, and he's going to have a great deal of sins. But God's going to look in his record and say, oh, yeah, there was a time when there was a man who was in debt to you and he couldn't pay you back and you forgave his debt. And who forgives greater than me? No one, according to the words of Allah. No one forgives greater than God. So I'll forgive you because you showed mercy and compassion to that man. And there are different hadith and Quranic verses. I know off the top of my head, there's a hadith that says, if you remove a difficulty from the path of a believer, Allah will remove the difficulty from you on the day of judgment. So there's a reward in forgiveness. There is a reward according to both Christianity and Islam. And sometimes that can be hard, even though we know that if you believe in God, if you're looking to the Creator, you're like, look, we expect the forgiveness of God, but we don't forgive our fellow man. Now, it's fruitless to seek revenge. That's what Ryan Holiday posits. And so do I. Because ultimately, justice is not revenge. There is justice and there is revenge. And I find that in today's world, especially with the online world and social media, there is a lot of people playing tit for tat. You do this, I'm going to do this. One for you, one for me. And that's not really how life goes. Ultimately, you got to let it go. You got to remember that the past is now another land, as it was spoken in the book and the musical Aida, far beyond my reach. Like, keep in mind that when that thing happened, you weren't even the same person that you are now. You're a whole different person. Time is past. What's done is done, and there's somehow you got to find peace with that within yourself. And I'll tell you, it's a hard road to hoe sometimes. Sometimes I wish I could see that person that talked stuff about me or said something unkind to me or drug my name through the mud left and right. I want my get back. But then I remember another quote that basically says, if you're seeking revenge, be prepared to dig two graves. One of the person you're trying to get revenge on, and then the other for yourself. So sometimes you have to just recognize that you don't always get closure. You don't always get your lick back. Sometimes it's a lesson to learn and a story to tell. And you got to be able to at least forgive. You don't have to hang out with the person and be their friend, but at least have forgiveness in your heart for the person. And that's something I say to myself as I say it to you. That's something that I have to remind myself on the daily. Well, what do you guys think? Give me your opinions. Give me your feedback. Thank you.